Hi everyone, I'm Jane, and today we're gonna paint this cute snowy Christmas tree. Before we get started, make sure you check out the video description below for a full list of materials for today's painting, and then hit that subscribe button if you haven't already so that you can paint with me every week. Now let's get started. Today I'm using a 12 by 16 inch Frederick's red label canvas, and this is fresh out of the package. I have not prepared this canvas in any way. Now the first thing I want to do is paint my background for the wood boards. To do the background, I'm going to use my 1-inch flat brush, wet it in my water, and wipe a bit off on the edge. Now I have burnt umber, Mars black, and titanium white, and you don't have to use burnt umber. You can use any brown you like. You could even use several different browns if you like. So I'm actually going to load up with white because I don't want the boards to be too dark. So white is going to be the primary color that I use, and then I'm going to come in and kind of get a little scoop of brown on one corner and a little scoop of black on the other corner. See, it's not mixed at all. Start at the top and just bring my brush straight down, straight back up, and as I move side to side, they'll blend a little bit. I can go back over it if I need to blend it a bit more. I'm not focusing on whether the colors are blending or not. I'm only focusing on covering the canvas. And in doing so, sometimes the colors blend more and sometimes they blend a little less. More brown, maybe a little more brown than last time, a little bit of black. Sometimes I like to come at the edge like this rather than flat, just to lay down some of that paint and then keep on that edge. It helps dig down into the canvas a little bit better. Flat to get some of that extra paint off, back to the edge to just dig it down, and it helps give a little bit of a banded look to the paint. I need a little bit more brown than that. This is getting a little lighter than I actually want it, which is really not a big deal because I can go back after and streak whatever color I feel like is missing over top of it. So if I feel like it's too dark, I can streak some more white into here in a minute. Just pick up a little extra water when you feel like you need it. More brown, a little bit of black. This is going to be very similar to how I did the boards on the flowers on the fence video, the blue flowers and the old wooden fence. I got a little more brown. You don't want a real solid color here. It's the difference in the colors and the striping that's going to help it look like old boards. Let's get just a little bit more brown, maybe right in here. Maybe just a little hint of black. Now I'm going to go to my 1/2-inch angle, and I did wet this in my jar, and I'm just going to pick up black. And my canvas is still wet, so what I'm about to do may not end up being solid black, and that's okay. I'm just going to define a few boards. I like to kind of stagger them so they're not all real even, but you could do it however you like. I'm just going to start up here and very loosely bring it down. I don't mind if it wobbles. Sometimes I'll put a little extra pressure. Makes it look like maybe there's a little bit of a crack or something in the boards there. It's just an old fence and those boards don't fit together like they used to. And it doesn't matter if it's perfectly straight. I would just say keep it relatively straight, to make it look like maybe at one point this was a very straight and solid fence. Maybe now it's just a little bit wonky. It's gotten kind of old and warped. And I can go back over those lines later if I need to darken them. But I think that's it. I'm not going to do any more boards than that. Now the next part, let's add a little bit of character to the boards. And sticking with my 1/2 inch, I'm going to put a couple of knots in the boards. So I'll zoom you in there to show you how I'm going to do this. Using the tip of the brush, I'm just going to kind of plop it down and spin it around like that. Nothing terribly fancy. A lot of times you'll see the wood grain on these older boards as it kind of expands and contracts. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to use just the tip of my brush. If you're more comfortable using a different brush, that's okay too. But see how just the very tip of my brush is dragging? That's what I'm going to do. I'm not doing this. So just kind of start somewhere. It doesn't have to come from all the way at the top. Let it be really wobbly, and it goes around that knot and just kind of trails off. We can start another one here. It kind of follows that, and maybe it stops there. The one thing these lines don't do is they don't cross over each other. They always run next to each other. Let's do another one here. We'll start right here, and it's going to go around the knot and kind of come back to run alongside that line again. Just kind of add these wherever you want. Sometimes you can put a little extra pressure and say maybe there's a crack there. Add as many or as few as you like. I'm going to do another little knot up here. And run some little wood grain lines around that. If you've got some old boards, you know, at your house, maybe on a fence or a patio or something, go look at it and see how the wood grain moves. And use that as kind of your guide. Not all of these boards need a knot. I'm just going to add a few little wood grain lines. Maybe we'll have like a little crack up here. It's very, very simple. Don't make more out of this than it is. It's just little wiggly lines that don't cross over each other. All right, now I want to let this dry completely before I move on. So maybe 20 minutes or so, and we'll be back. All right, our background is dry now, and I did go over just the lines between the boards with a little bit of solid black, just to darken that bit. I didn't worry about going over anything inside the boards, but you can do it however you like. Now we're gonna add a bit of snow at the bottom, and I'm gonna use my 1/2 inch flat brush. I have some phthalo blue. I'm just going to pull out a little bit. You can use any blue you like. I just really like the vivid, intense color of phthalo blue. Just loosely mixing it into some white. And I'm going to keep this just a couple inches above the bottom. Just don't want the snow to be, you know, too much empty space. Give it kind of a natural little curve there. I don't want it to be perfectly flat, but you can do that if that's what you like. I'm just going to pick up some white. See, I'm using the tip of my brush again rather than flat because that helps get some streaks, which is nice when doing snow because those little bits of streak kind of imply shadow and highlight. But right now, I'm more concerned with covering it, and then I can go over and really make sure that those shadows and highlights and streaks are all in there. And once I add the gift package, I'm going to add just a little bit more snow here anyway, so I don't need to get, you know, too overly concerned with how it looks. I just want it to basically look right. Get just a little more white. And kind of pop this edge. And I think that's good. All right, now we're going to add a little bit of some kind of frosty snow here. And I'm going to take my 1/2 inch brush. It's still got the blue and the white on it. I'm going to dunk it into my water and just bring it out. Maybe get that heavy drip off of there. I'm going to come over to here and just mix that water with a little bit of white and the paint that's already on my brush. It's going to be pretty blue right now, and that's perfectly okay. It's pretty thin. I'm going to start this right about the bottom. I don't necessarily want it to look like falling snow. I want it to be more like kind of frosty bits on the fence. So I'm going to hold it like this, point that corner toward my canvas, and just flick. And every time I flick like this, people ask, you know, can I use a toothbrush? Can I do it this way? Can I do it this way? You can do it however you need to do it. I know a lot of people prefer to use a toothbrush. Use a toothbrush. That is perfectly fine. Now I have found, I know some people have a hard time flicking like this, and as you can see, I'm not getting a lot of, you know, little flicky bits going on here, but it's obvious there's a lot of paint on my brush. So what I've noticed helps is I'm going to wash my brush off. I rinsed it in clean water, so it's just wet now. And I'm going to go back in and mix that water in with that paint, get a nice runny paint again. And now it's flicking a lot better. I think that as you flick it, it kind of gets foamy in the brush. A little bit of foam builds up, and that prevents it from flicking too much. So every once in a while I do have to stop and wash it off and do it again as the foam kind of builds up in the brush. I'm concentrating these little flicky bits down here at the bottom, right at the edge of the snow. It's okay if it goes over top of the snow. And then I will slowly move up, so there's a little bit throughout the entire canvas. See how I'm letting it go up a bit now? It's just a very fine spray. Take a little bit of it all the way to the top, but I want to make sure it's definitely heavier right at the bottom. I don't know if you can tell because I zoomed you out, but I'm not getting the spray anymore like I was, even though there's still quite a bit of paint on here, just because it's gotten foamy. Same thing, I just washed it off. Ooh, it's kind of running everywhere now. And reloaded. Perfect. All the way up a little bit. I'm not worried if some of them are big splatters. You know, sometimes there's little clumps of snow that fall. Not necessarily all little fine snowflakes. One more load of white. I just really want to make it frosty here at the bottom, and then we'll move on. Okay, I'm going to go back to my 1/2 inch angle, and I did wet this in my jar again. And I'm going to pick up just a little bit of burnt umber, whatever brown you used is fine, and black, mostly black. A little bit of extra water there. And we're going to start sketching out our branch. Now I want my branch to be very natural looking, so I'm not going to just draw a line that would be a little bit smoother than what a pine branch actually is. I'm going to start from up here and just kind of sketch it like that. That's going to help it be kind of jaggedy. something like that. We can make it a little bit wider up here if we like. Always just these short little brush strokes. It's maybe 2 inches, 1.5 inches or so. A little more. Let's make a little one that kind of comes off of here. Maybe there's one over here. I like the idea of one kind of poking up from here. Let's try that and see how that is. Let's get a little bit more burnt umber, maybe a little hint of white. Just a bit of a lighter color, and just generally scratch that on. Try to make sure that you're not getting it as light as the boards in the background. You don't want it to blend in there. I'm just adding a little hint just so it's not pure black. Okay, I've got you zoomed in here on one of the little branches. We're gonna start adding our pine needles. So I'm still using my 1/2 inch angle, and I just loaded up with burnt umber. I'm really gonna try and focus my attention onto the front half of my brush again. So pretty much like that, not doing that. Just decide where you wanna start and start kind of flicking pine needles out. Don't try to get real specific and, you know, even with these. Let them be wild looking. This isn't a fake Christmas tree. This is a real wild plant growing outside. We'll give it a few little flicky, needly bits on the top. And it's gonna kind of move off the edge of the canvas. That's okay. Burnt umber is kind of transparent, so, you know, you will be able to see everything through it. Don't worry about that. Kind of take a cue from, you know, the branch you're working on. If it's a smaller branch, maybe make the little pine bit a bit smaller. If it's a larger branch, you can make it bigger. So see how transparent that is. I'm using Basics burnt umber, but even the heavy body burnt umber is going to be kind of transparent. It's just the nature of burnt umber. This is kind of a large one. And up here, I feel like this is kind of a small one. One other thing I really like to do is wherever there's a bend, so like we've got a little bit of a bend there, maybe we can put a couple little sticky bits there too. However you want to do this is perfectly fine. Just going to darken up a couple spots of this burnt umber, and then we'll move on to the next color. All right, same brush. I have a little bit of cadmium yellow medium. I'm going to pull a bit of that out and mix up a nice dark green. It's going to be very on the blue side. Just a hint of green to it. I'm going to even grab just a little burnt umber for this first color. So it's kind of a dark aqua. I'm going to do the same thing. Just kind of start and flick some of it out. Let some of that brown show. That's why we did it. Each color is going to add just a little bit more depth and interest to these pine needles. See how quickly I'm working here? It's not to try and make it look easy, which I hear all the time. It's so that I don't, you know, try and micromanage it too much. Get in here and really make sure, oh, I want one right there. Don't do that. Just flick it. Always keeping just a little hint of that burnt umber in my mixture. If it's a little puffy looking, just get a little extra water on your brush. A couple little flicks there. Pine needles are really fun to paint, but if you get too, detailed with it and try and really control where each one is going, then you're going to end up with, a stick with a bunch of chevrons on it, and I think that looks really awkward. So now we have that. I'm just going to pull some yellow into the mixture on my brush. Get a bit of a brighter green. Let's go a little bit brighter than that. I'm going to do the same thing. Now, just like always, when I add a lighter color, I'm going to add a little bit less of it. As my color gets lighter, I add less. Again, leaving those first two colors showing. I love the idea of decorating a real tree outside rather than, a tree inside. Just seems like such a fun thing to do. Now I'm going to pull in some more yellow, get a very bright color that leans really close to yellow. And again, and less of it this time. See, I love the depth that you get from letting all of those little colors show. Just kind of helps it seem a little bit more substantial. All right, now let's start placing our ornaments. Now I'm just going to do 3 ornaments. You can do as many as you like, and you can either freehand them or use something to trace them on. And I actually like the size of this little spray bottle. It's about 1.5 inches or so. So I'm going to use that. I just want some little ornaments. So I'm going to use this blue chalk pencil because I'm going to do blue ornaments and decide where I want it. I'm going to make sure to leave a little bit of a space. So I'm not going to put it right on it. Hang it down a little bit and just draw a circle around my little spray bottle. And let's see, maybe another one right here. And I want to make sure they're staggered. So I think I'll put another one here. Now I have some cobalt blue, some black, and some white, and you can use any colors you like. And I'm going to use my number 8 filbert. So I'm just going to decide which one to start with. I'm going to load up with some cobalt blue, and I think I'm going to kind of vary my mixtures a little between the 3 of these and make each one of them look just a little bit of a different shade of blue. So just a bit of blue, and I'm going to start filling this in. Remember to use the tip of your brush to get a nice crisp edge. You don't want to, you know, try and do it on the side like that, because it's easy to lose control of your brush when you're using the side. The more pressure you put, the whiter the brush is going to get. So use the tip of the brush to create your crisp edge, and then you can use the side after that to fill it in or refine it if you need to. I'm not worried about any of these little lines from the chalk pencil that I don't want, because once I'm done, it will either come off with a slightly damp brush, or I can use the little eraser on the pencil and get that off of there. A little bit more blue, and I'm going to get just a little pop of white, just a bit of a lighter color, and I'm just going to kind of dab it in there. Wherever I want the highlight, that's where I'm starting. Cobalt can be, it's kind of a translucent color, so it's not really transparent, but it's not completely opaque. So if you feel like you're struggling to get coverage, you can still see the wood through it, you can let it dry and come back to it. Now I'm just picking up a little bit of white. See, it's just a smear of color. There's no globs. And again, just light pressure, I'm kind of dashing it into that area where I want the highlight. And because the color I'm working on is still wet, it's kind of blending as I move out and kind of fading out that light color, and that's what I want. Keeping in mind that I want a little bit more of a shadow on the bottom edge of the ornament. I might come back a little bit later to really pop the highlight there, just so I don't overwork it since all of this paint is still wet. Just finish this spot up. Get all the way to that edge. Don't be afraid to get to the edge. If you don't get to the edge, see how I've got a dark edge right there? That's going to kind of throw it off. It's not going to look real natural, the highlight. So get all the way to that edge. There we go. And I'm going to load up with that blue again. And just a little bit of black. I just want a little bit of a darker color. Dash that on. Don't be afraid to dash it ever so lightly over the edge of the lighter color. You don't want to leave, you know, like come right up to the lighter color and stop, because you'll have a line there where they meet but don't fade into each other. You want to fade them into each other. See, I'm even kind of tapping it up into that lighter area. Just helps to, you know, kind of make the fade a little bit more natural. Very light pressure. I'm not using a ton of paint. If you have globs of paint on your brush right here, then as you dash it onto your ornament, you're going to have a really hard time getting a blend. Take that darker color just at the back edge here a little bit. And I think I'll come back and mess with that shadow in a little bit too. All right, I'm just going to take what I have on my brush here, mix it with my blue. Maybe I'll mix it with a little bit of white. Get a little bit more of a silvery color. I like that. And I'm going to fill in this one. So even though I'm using the same 3 colors, all of my ornaments are going to look a little bit different but they'll still work together. So that'll be nice. My line got a little wonky there when I was tracing my little spray bottle. So I have to be aware of that and make sure I'm not following the wonky bits. Okay, let's get a bit of white and kind of tap in the highlight. Same place. Make sure you're not doing your highlight in a completely different area, because that's gonna kind of throw it all off and make it look like your tree is, or your ornaments are existing in different places from each other. You know, if one's being lit from the top and the other's being lit from the bottom, and I mean, that's fine if you're doing a tree that's like maybe in the dark, but it has lights on it, then your light sources on each ornament might be completely different. But my tree is outside and it doesn't have any Christmas lights on it, so I think I'd have a consistent single light source. So they're all going to be highlighted on the same spot, and they're all going to be shadowed on the same spot. Let's get a little bit of a darker color, a little more blue, a little more black. Just a color a bit darker than what we started with. I don't think that's dark enough. Nope. Let's go a little bit darker. That's a little better. Remember to gently tap that all the way up into that previous color. Let them blend ever so slightly. And again, if you are having a hard time getting a little bit of a blend by tapping, you very well may have too much paint on your brush. This ornament's looking a little bit strange, but like I said with the other one, I'm going to let it dry a bit, and then I'll come back and touch up the highlights and the shadows. One more dark bit, just for right here. I washed off my brush. I'm just going to get some cobalt and a little bit of white. Just make a slightly lighter color of the original blue. And fill in this one. So see how all of my ornaments, the colors, they're just a little bit different. They're not all exactly the same. Just picked up a bit of white there. Lightly tapping it into that highlight area. Wipe some of that off. I'm going to try something here for the shadow. I'm going to try just using the solid blue, not any of the black. We'll see. I may end up throwing a bit of the black in there, but maybe not. I kind of like that. you know, you can do these in all kinds of colors. Last year we did a little Christmas tree with some ornaments on it, and I used, I think I only did 3 ornaments on that one as well, but we used different colors for each of them. So you could, you know, make the little ornaments whatever colors you typically like to have on your tree, or, you know, whatever colors you just like. I think it does need just a hint of black in there because I feel like it just looks a little flat without it. I didn't pick up a ton, just enough to kind of gray out the shadow a bit. And I'm definitely going to have to let this dry before I finish it, but we'll move on and work on the pine cones here while the ornaments dry. All right, so for the pine cones, I'm going to use my 1/2-inch filbert, and I have a little burnt umber. I'm going to grab a bit of black, mix it in there. I want a very, very dark brown. I want to be able to tell it's brown, but I want it to be almost black. These pine cones are going to be very, very simple. So I'm going to decide where I want one, and I think maybe let's put one right about here. So I'm going to use the rounded shape of my filbert to my advantage. I'm going to kind of press and let it widen out, swoop it down this way to a little bit of a point there. Same thing on the other side, so just a cute little, just a small pine cone. So we just have like a little dark teardrop shape. Maybe let's put one next to it too, so we'll have 2 of them here. Just use the tip of my filbert and kind of sketch out little stem or something, just where the pine cone connects. Now I'm going to grab a bit of white and mix it in there loosely. Still a fairly dark color, but noticeably lighter than what we used. Now I'm going to use kind of the corner of my filbert. I'm going to come in here and just push, take it outside of that shape a bit. And push. See, outside of the shape, but nothing overly specific. And one little bit there on the bottom. Let's do the other pine cone next to it. Don't worry about which one's on top. Go ahead and overlap your pine cones. Whichever one you end up doing last is going to be the one that looks like it's on top. And let's get a bit more white. I kind of picked up a little blob of it. I'm going to lay it down there and scrape back through it the other direction. Just add a little highlight. Maybe it's a bit of snow. Maybe it's just, you know, that the pine cone is a bit of a different color. Doesn't really matter. Just a little more of a highlight there. And on this one. Simple, easy little pine cones. And because things are always much more appealing in 3s, I'm going to add one more kind of right here. Maybe this one will be just a little bit bigger than the other 2. So he's growing on his own. See, just kind of a rounded teardrop shape. A little bit of white in that mixture. The edge of my filbert, go outside of that shape. And pine cones are all shaped so different, you guys. So if your pine cones look totally different than mine, that's okay. You know, there's a lot of different trees that produce cones, and they all look really different. All right, let's finish up our ornaments. Now I'm going to use a little bit of matte medium. You don't have to if you don't want to. But the reason I'm going to use matte medium is because my ornaments are pretty dry now. And rather than trying to get the exact same color that I used for each of these ornaments, I'm just going to pick up a little bit of white with matte medium, and the matte medium will thin it out so that I don't have to worry about, you know, getting the right mixture of blue again. So I'm going to grab just a little point of white and put it where I want my brightest highlight and just kind of tap it around a little bit. You could definitely do this with just a damp brush if you like. I just really prefer the way matte medium spreads things. Just a little point of matte medium now, just a tiny point of it. There's still a little white on my brush, but mostly I'm just spreading matte medium, and I can kind of swipe it around with my finger. Still just picking up matte medium. And by a tiny point of white, I mean, you know, less than about the size of a head of a pin, a tiny point of white. See if I can get it to focus there. See that tiny point of white? That is really all I'm picking up here. If you get a big glob of white, it's going to spread and you're just really going to cover your ornament. Bright little specks there. About the same amount of matte medium, maybe a little bit more matte medium than I picked up of white. And I'm going to pull a little hint of it down there. I'm going to do the same thing now with the black. Can you see that? The tiniest pinpoint of black. Itsy bitsy amount. I'm going to spread that at the very base of my ornament here. Tap it until that black is completely spread out. Tiny point of matte medium. Because the matte medium is going to mix with that wet black a bit, and it will take it out farther than I could get the black to go on its own. Same thing here. Tiny little pinpoint of white. Spread it out here where I want it the brightest. Tiny bit more. You can always get more, but if you get too much, it's really hard to deal with then. Okay, so that little bit of white is all spread out. Little point of matte medium. All the way to the edge. And just blur out any lines. A little bit more white. Nice bright spot right in here. Little point of black. I didn't clean the white off of my brush this time, but that's because this ornament I'm working on is a different color. So if my shadow is a little bit more gray than the other ornament, that's okay. So that shadow right there is very, very dark, and obviously it's much darker than I want. But I'm not worried about it, because once I put the matte medium on it, it will thin down that black paint and really help move it around. I went outside my line again. All right, last one, a little point of white. Matte medium. You can add any kind of ornaments you want to your tree. Get super creative and, you know, maybe do some of those little, like, kind of retro star-shaped ornaments. Those might be fun. Just a bit of blue. I feel like I just took that white just a little too far. So see, if you get a little carried away with your highlight, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You can easily cover it. See, I'm just taking a hint of blue and just dashing it into the areas where I feel like I'm missing it now. Tiny point of black, tiny point of blue. That was more than a tiny point of blue. And our shadow. And we're just about done with these ornaments. We still have to do the hangers, but that'll be pretty easy. A little matte medium with my color. If you feel like you like the idea of doing all, you know, one color of ornaments like what I did with the blue, but you don't feel like you're getting enough color difference, just mixing different variations of black and white, use 3 different colors of blue. You could use like cobalt and ultramarine and phthalo blue, and that would still give you kind of that cohesive look, but with a difference in each ornament. All right, we're gonna go pretty simple with the ornament toppers. I'm gonna go to my number 8 bright, and I'm gonna load up with some black and mix it with some white. Just get a gray. It doesn't really matter if it's a dark gray or a light gray, just a gray. Now what I'm gonna do is, like I did before, I'm gonna dunk into the white, get a bit on the end of my brush, wipe it off, cross over it the other way to pick it back up. That just kind of gives you a marble of the color on here without having a big blob of it. And to add the ornament top, I'm just gonna come in here, right in the center, make sure it's not off to the side. Just wipe to the side. That's it. Just add a little shadow there. Let's grab a tiny poke of white and a little bit of a highlight on the other side. Same thing here. And here. I'm just going to take a little round brush. This is my number 1, and we'll just make like a, we don't have to put too much energy into that. Just the indication that there's an ornament wire there, I think is perfectly fine. Okay, I've decided that I want kind of a swag of just white beads hanging on the tree. So I have my white chalk pencil, and you're probably not going to be able to see the white chalk pencil very well. So I'm just going to sketch on here with my white chalk and see what I like. But I want to for sure plan it out before I start adding paint. And this chalk pencil will clean off pretty easy if I decide I don't like something. Just kind of swagging this little strand of beads from one branch to another. Maybe we'll let it go off the side there. Maybe we have just a couple little strands of these beads. So there's another strand here maybe. I think I actually like that. And I'm using my number 6 round. I did wet it in my jar. It doesn't really matter what size of brush you use. You could even use the end of a brush if you like. I'm just gonna come in here and poke the brush in until I get a good amount on the end. And then I'm just gonna start kind of dotting. I'm just gonna lightly touch the canvas. It doesn't have to be real even. You can even come in and put a little heavier pressure on from time to time, get some larger beads, and then lighter pressure right back down into some smaller ones. I think it's fun to keep a little variation like that. And then we'll kind of taper that out like it goes inside of the branch maybe. And then we'll have it coming down out of the back side. So you don't have to just put the beads on top of everything. You know, you can make them disappear behind something to say that it's, you know, being covered. And it might be really fun if you do these in different colors too. You don't have to do it in just white like I am. It might be really fun if you do these with some metallic paint also, silver or gold. I don't have any, so I'm just going to do white. I think I'm going to have that disappear behind the ornament. Get some wider beads right there, slowly taper back down to some smaller ones. Kind of disappear into that branch. And back out of it here. Maybe I want another one, just right here at the top. Now at the very bottom here, I did say before that I wanted to put like a little gift box, but I've kind of decided against that. What I think I'm actually going to do is just one more little pine cone and maybe a little spray of the pine needles, touch up the snow, and then we're done. All right, I have my black-brown mixture and my 1/2-inch filbert again, and we'll just kind of start with a little pine cone shape. It's going to be laying down. I'm not terribly worried about what the bottom of it looks like because I'm going to cover the bottom edge of it with snow. I just want to make sure that like the top edge of it really is what I want. I think that's good. A little white in that mixture again. I didn't mention this before, but I'm kind of bricklaying these shapes. So if you think about the way bricks are set, you know, in a wall, how they kind of stagger. That's kind of how I'm doing this. A little of that dark color for a bit of a stem. And a little bit of a stick where our green bit is going to come from. And then my pine needles just like before. Just starting with the burnt umber. Let's even get just a little bit kind of poking up from here, since this is behind our pine cone. Maybe just one more little bit right here, just a small one. Okay, my cadmium yellow medium with my phthalo blue, and I still have that brown on my brush. My nice dark green. A little more yellow in there. Just remember while you're doing these are kind of, you know, at an awkward angle compared to the ones that are in the tree. And if you don't like something about one of these, just cover it with some snow. And one brighter, quite a bit yellow. Okay, I'm gonna get my blow dryer, make sure this is completely dry. We'll touch up the snow and we'll be done. All right, back to my 1/2 inch flat. And I'm gonna grab a little tiny bit of phthalo blue, mix it with some white. I want quite a bit of white. It's a very loose mixture. And I'm gonna cover up the areas that I want covered, so I kind of want the pine cone to seem like it's buried in the snow a little bit. A little bit more white. And feather that line out. not bad. Pretty much, that's exactly what I was thinking. So I just picked up a bit of white facing up on my brush to get that hard line at the top, and then flat under that to kind of drift it down. Let's get a little more white. See how I've got the white loaded on the top, not really on the bottom. So that white on the top is pointing up, and that's how I get that nice bright top to the snow. This is really going to be very similar to the way I did the snow in the winter landscape that we did recently. Just kind of put it on and pull it down. Focus on having a mixture of hard edges and soft edges. And that's going to help you get that snowbank feel. There we go. I like that heavier white over there. So you're like just dunking into it and getting like a little curly cue of white on the top and just lightly smearing it. That is going to be about it. And then I'm going to sign it. And there's your cute, snowy little Christmas tree. I hope you enjoyed painting this simple little Christmas tree, and I would love to see what you've done with it. Make sure you find me on Instagram and then tag me when you post your version. Thank you as always to my sponsor, Fredericks, for providing the awesome canvas that I used in today's video. And thank you as always for painting with me, everyone. I'll see you next time.